Welcome to The Cutting Edge. I'm Zima Creason. The Cutting Edge is the California Edge Coalition's interview series where we talk about all things related to workforce development, education, and training. The California Edge Coalition is a statewide policy and advocacy organization. We're focused on addressing the skilled workforce shortage while creating pathways to the middle class with a real focus on economic mobility for Californians that have been left out of our state's prosperity. I am thrilled to welcome the Honorable Assembly Member Jackie Irwin. Welcome, Assembly Member.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Zima.
Really happy to talk to you today. So let's just jump in. You're the author of AB 99, which would establish the Cradle to Career Data System, California's first longitudinal data system, kind of a big deal. AB 99 passed out of both the Assembly Education and Higher Education committees with unanimous support. Again, kind of a big deal. And next up is appropriation. So could you just tell us a little bit more about AB 99 and why you're committed to the data system?
I certainly can. So in 2019, I helped secure funding for the Cradle to Career data system as part of the annual budget. And that convened a group of stakeholders and tasked them with creating a plan to build an integrated statewide longitudinal data system. And as you mentioned, California is one of only a handful of states that does not operate a system or that links together existing education, workforce, financial aid, and social service information. And that means that people like us, legislators, policymakers, researchers, and members of the public can't answer key questions about what journey through various levels of learning actually looks like and what disparities exist. When we have this kind of data, and it's usually thanks to dedicated researchers, we're clearly able to identify structural barriers. So I think a really good example of how to use data is the work that I've done on remedial education at the community colleges. What we found was that when students are placed in remedial classes, especially a few levels below transfer level classes, the odds that they are actually going to take and pass a transfer level class are very small, 25% in cases of our local community colleges. And the students that are being placed in these remedial classes are disproportionately Black and Brown students. So we were able to get money in the budget to look at high impact practices and in accelerating young people through community college. And it turns out the biggest impact is changing how we do placement. It used to be the high stakes placement test that placed young people into these remedial classes, and it really wasn't a very good indicator of success. So 705 was implemented at a lot of schools early on, and it is the law now, and we are seeing literally tens of thousands of students move forward and complete transfer level classes and graduate that weren't doing it before. But we needed to have data for that. And so now with the pandemic, we've highlighted the importance of having the right data during a crisis and looking at students' access to food, internet, digital devices, looking at geography, race, and family income. We will be able to see, who is experiencing the most data loss. Without a comprehensive and reliable data set, we simply can't make data-driven decisions about how to most effectively use our limited resources. So the report that we sent to the legislature is kind of the roadmap on how we're going to build this ambitious data system. So that's kind of where we are with AB 99.
Love it. I mean, so much of what you said really resonates with me. You so many points, but I'm just going to highlight a couple. In my lived experience, I grew up in Southside Sacramento. A lot of disparities there, and a lot of us didn't know that you had to take one test, and that would determine where you end up. When you went to community college, you had no idea the magnitude of that test, and the fact that you had to go to school and not get credit. College credit, it really deterred a lot of people from continuing their program. So I've seen firsthand in my community the detriment of how things used to work. I also really appreciate what you said about the wraparound services. What do we need to do to help students in any way that they need, meet them where they're at so that they can complete their program, because that is the end goal, right? Complete your program so that you can, for EDGE, enter into a high road job, a good job with those family supporting wages, benefits, really access to economic mobility. So it was a pleasure to hear you say so much of what you said, because for the communities EDGE serves and where I came from, it's a big deal.
Absolutely.
So you touched a bit on this, but just wondering, is there anything else you wanted to share about your vision for the system?
Certainly. So obviously, I have my perspective as a legislator, but I'm also an engineer by training. And I know that data has the power to cut through noise and create a shared set of facts, which is absolutely crucial if we're going to engage in good faith discussions that result in more equitable policies. California is so large and diverse. It's impossible to hear from every stakeholder or person that is impacted by their unique perspective. And those that are in the greatest need often don't have the time or ability to testify before the legislature or show up to their local school board meeting, as you know all about. So this data system is to ensure that no one is left out or left behind, because we will be able to see it in the numbers. I'm also excited by the prospect of our user-centered tools that will help students, parents, educators, and counselors navigate the journey into higher education, such as verifying that their courses satisfy eligibility requirements for four-year colleges and for submitting financial aid applications. Once it's fully implemented, these tools are going to make it possible for us to sit down and explore all our options. So like, what kind of jobs will be in demand in my area? What schools and campuses offers programs that will help me get one of those jobs? And what is the projected return on investment for certain degrees or credentials? And lastly, I think we're beginning to see a very exciting and important cultural shift in how we think about data in California. For so long, data and reporting requirements have been seen as a necessary evil, something schools and agencies had to do to prove compliance with state or federal requirements. But I think more and more leaders are realizing that data is not something to be afraid of. At all levels of government and business, those who engage with their organization's data regularly and intentionally are going to be able to overcome even the most serious challenges.
Again, you're singing to my heart. And so much of what you said, again, just gets me right here. But one thing I want to really highlight and elevate is something that EDGE really pushed for, is to ensure that the data system is forward facing and can be used by community as well, not just systems. Of course, it's important that systems and decision makers have data to base decisions on, of course. But we also want people, the actual humans, to be able to use that to make decisions. Just like you said, if I go this route, this is where it'll get me. If I go this route, this is where it'll get me. What is the ROI? Going to school isn't just money, it's time, right? And time equates to money. We focus at EDGE on adult learners, more and more on opportunity youth as well. And so we know that many of these people are in jobs already. So when they make that decision to upskill through education and training, that they really need to know that it's worth the sacrifices that they're going to need to make, especially when they have a family at home and other responsibilities already. So just really appreciate your spirit.
Thank you.
All right. So in your view, and this is a little bit about EDGE. In your view, how have partner organizations such as the California EDGE Coalition helped advance the establishment of the data system? And how can we be most helpful to you moving forward?
Well, let's make it a little bit about the California EDGE Coalition. And then, of course, the other organizations that focus on educational equity and improving opportunity for all Californians. You have been instrumental at getting us to this point. So many individuals from the advocacy and research community have been asking for this kind of system for years. So I really appreciate how you all have helped lay the foundation for why this system is needed. Moving forward, we know that this system is also a priority for the governor. So we're looking forward in engaging in budget negotiations to make sure that this system is the best it can be. We're going to need to educate staff and members about the importance of data, especially this year when there are so many other important issues being discussed. So I really appreciate the help of organizations like EDGE in hosting briefings and speaking to staff about the value this system will provide. Even once the bill is signed or the budget item is signed into law, there's going to be plenty of work to be done when we actually build the system. And that's why my staff and I have spent so much time talking to a variety of stakeholders with a focus on striking the right balance on the governing board between data providers, practitioners who are in the classroom, and members who represent the public, the ultimate beneficiaries of the system. So I hope that the EDGE Coalition and all those other groups that have been so involved will continue to engage with suggestions on how to improve the system and what types of data are going to be most useful.
Appreciate that so much. And we stand ready. We are so thankful for the partnerships that we have with the other organizations. You know, we work very closely with EdTrust West, and California Competes, and so many others in this space. TICAS, you know, I know I'm going to forget somebody, but it's all hands on deck. And the camaraderie and the united voice behind this system is so incredibly inspiring. A little bit about EDGE for folks that may not know. What makes us unique is who's a part of our coalition, who's at our board table. We have a very unusual group of suspects. I mean, we bring together labor, employer groups, education leaders, social justice groups, and others that often have different interests when we're talking about policy, but we have this North Star. So our ability to get behind this data system and to have that reach into those very individual, unique groups, to get behind you and get behind this bill and get behind this effort, you know, I think it's a big deal, and we stand ready. And I want you to know we're ready to do whatever it takes to see this through with you.
Well, couldn't do it without you.
Appreciate that, Assembly Member. So as we wrap up, we love to end with a fun personal question. So I'd love to know, as we're entering into summertime, about to enter into summer recess in a couple of months, what are you looking forward to, especially with some of the restrictions starting to lift?
Oh my gosh, I'll tell you, it's been now 2 weeks since I got my second vaccination, and you know, everybody's saying it. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. See people walking around with their masks off, outside, exercising, going to restaurants. So really, really excited for what this means. But there's been a lot of things that have been postponed, and one of them was my daughter's wedding. And she had done all the planning, and it was supposed to be last August. And so not exactly during summer break, but during summer break, we're going to be finishing all our planning and doing the wedding showers and hoping that everything goes as planned and she'll be able to get married in August.
Oh, I love that so much. How exciting for you and her, but you.
Oh, it's yes, I'm very excited, and I think that'll be the final. Okay, we're at normalcy now, and so we're crossing our fingers that people continue to see the benefit of getting vaccinated,
Yeah.
because that's really how we will be able to return to normal. So, you know, I urge everybody that is listening today, don't postpone getting the vaccine.
Listen to the Assembly Member. She knows what she's talking about. Assembly Member Irwin, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity.
And we'll see you next time on The Cutting Edge.